Guys, welcome back to Box, a football talk show powered by Sportology TV. In the first part, we had Max Rushton join us, talk about everything to do with football over the past weekend. This time around, we bring somebody who's been on the channel before, actually the highest viewed video on our channel so far. So, he's a big name. Former England and Leeds player, and now does his thing on TalkSport and quite a few other sort of broadcasting places. None other than Danny Mills. Danny, how you doing, mate?
I'm very well. I'm delighted to hear that I was the highest listened to, watched, whatever, and delighted that Max has warmed everybody up for me.
He sends his love. He said to send his love. You are a sort of main presenter on Sky Sports, we can say. As I did see a few weeks ago, you had to stand in for someone who had some technical issues.
Yeah, it was talk about last minute, and I think it's the world that we live in at the moment, isn't it? Obviously, with technology and everybody trying to work from home as much as possible. Rob Watton had a power cut with about 3 minutes to go to on air. Obviously, there wasn't enough time to get another presenter in or anything like that and set everything up. And they just said, look, can you open the show, throw to, I think, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or whatever, and we'll go from there. And if he comes back, he comes back. If not, you're just going to have to keep presenting throughout. So my presenting career lasted all of about 15 seconds.
You did well, I saw. You did well.
Danny, how's life treating you? You're in another lockdown. How's life? How's this whole working from home and everything else that you're doing at the moment? Yeah, I mean, I sort of sadly getting used to it now, I think. After the first lockdown, which was a little bit more severe than this, obviously, there was no sport happening, nothing was going on in the world, was it? But it was during the summer and we were able to get out a little bit more and enjoy life. I'm thankful at the moment that, coffee shops are still open for takeaway. A little dog walk down to the coffee shop gets me out, go a little bit of a run. But of course, sport is still on. So for me, hasn't changed a great deal because we're still allowed to go to games. We're still allowed to go into studios and broadcast. So the traffic's much better. Driving up and down the M1 and around the country, and you can park right outside the ground. So that's a little bit better. But no, I think, we all want normality to return as quickly as we can.
Well, we're going to start off obviously talking about Leeds. So they had a game against Arsenal, 0-0 draw. Talk to me about that game. And obviously there was a sending off, there's a red card for Arsenal. What was your thoughts on watching that game?
I mean, I thought Leeds were fantastic. They were incredibly dominant throughout the whole game. Their energy levels, their tactics were spot on. I think Arsenal were very, very fortunate to get away with a point in that game. And I think the sending off sort of papers over the cracks for Arsenal. It's easy for Mikel Arteta to come out and say afterwards, look, we dug in second half. We had no choice. We had to sit back. We had to defend. We were resolute. My goalkeeper made some great saves. We could have maybe nicked the odd goal on the counter-attack. There was a couple of a chance for Bukayo Saka and Aubameyang, I think, had a chance as well. But Arsenal, I thought, were poor. Leeds completely dominated the game. Just couldn't seem to get the ball in the back of the net. Just a lack of composure. A little bit unfortunate, hit the woodwork 3 times, couldn't get that goal. I think if Leeds would have got 1, they'd have gone on to get 2, maybe even 3, and would have won the game very, very comfortably.
What do you make of Leeds' season so far? It's been, like a lot of teams, been very inconsistent. They get some great results, and then, there's some games that they're supposed to win, and, they've lost the last 2 games for the Arsenal game, and they lost them quite...
I think anybody that's watched Leeds over the last, couple of seasons under BIELSA sort of knew this was going to happen. Leeds have struggled against teams that have, I would say, sat in, 2 banks of 4 or a bank of 4 and a bank of 5 and made it very, very difficult. Teams that have come and played and been expansive, Leeds have ripped apart. They've got more energy. Look at the Liverpool game start of the season. Leeds were right in that game because Liverpool wanted to play. Manchester City was a fantastic game of football because Leeds, wanted to play and obviously Man City wanted to play. Crystal Palace, Leeds struggled because Roy Hodgson, 2 banks of 4, we sit in, we defend deep. That's been happening in the last couple of seasons in the Championship. Goals at times have been a bit of an issue. Patrick Bamford has started this season magnificently well. but he has missed the odd chance, in the past, and that was a little bit of a concern. And the defence, because they are so open, because they are so expansive, they do concede chances from time to time. And as much as they were dominant against Arsenal, they could have easily been hit on the counter-attack. Bukayo Saka went through one-on-one against Messi, and the goalkeeper did fantastic. I remember the Cardiff game last year in the Championship. I think Leeds had 80% possession in the game. I think Cardiff had one shot on target, and they won the game. So for anybody that watches Leeds sort of regularly, this is not a new thing.
Is there any particular players that have really sort of stepped up now? Obviously, they've gone up to the Premier League. You've gone. Can you still hear us?
I'm still there.
Okay, good. You're back. Is there any Leeds players? It's non-stop. Who have really sort of stood out for you and performed and stepped up this season?
Well, I think Patrick Bamford has been fantastic. The way that he has suddenly, started scoring goals. He has worked so hard. And even when he was missing chances in the Championship, I never, ever faulted him for his work rate and the effort that he put in. That was absolutely sensational. But of course, he's now starting to score goals. I think Rodrigo is coming. And he looks like a really good player. He's got that little bit of quality in there as well. Pablo Hernandez, who's been sensational over the last couple of seasons, is not getting any younger. When this is coming from me, but when you look at him, he looks an awful lot older than he is. He doesn't look sort of mid-30s, does he? But he's sort of starting to suffer from the odd injury. I think Rafinha, looks like he will be a player. He's now had a couple of weeks to work with Bielsa, obviously on the international break, and is looking to get up to speed. But I've been impressed with, Liam Cooper. The captain has really stepped up, at this level. Luke Ayling, players that have played right down in the lower leagues, have really sort of come to the fore within this. And I think, the concern is, can they make that leap? Can they make that step up, from sort of League One to the Championship and then to the Premier League? And so far, they're doing it fantastically well.
Danny, where would you be happy for Leeds to finish? It's only a couple of games in. I think we're 9 games in at the moment. But going off what they've played so far, what would be sort of good for you for Leeds to end up in?
I said right at the start of the season, if Leeds can be 14th, 15th, safe, with 5 or 6 games to go, I will be delighted. The last thing you want to be going is sort of looking over your shoulder with 5 or 6 games to go, panicking, thinking, we need another 2 wins, or, just go into that last 5 or 6 games and just play with a bit of freedom because you're safe. You've got to your 38-point mark, whatever, and then you can just play. You don't want to be like, sort of Villa were last season, thinking, 1 defeat and we're back in the bottom 3, or all these types of things. You have to be realistic. Leeds will be very, very entertaining this season because of the way that they play, the energy levels that they have. They can sustain it because they've actually got less games this season, to contend with, as opposed to the Championship. They will win some games. They will be very entertaining. They will lose some games. I think there's at least three worst teams in the league. So I don't have any fears of Leeds going down because I think they will win enough games to stay up. But I don't want it to be too tight at the end of the season. This has to be a consolidation season. Do not get carried away with thinking about European football or finishing, in the top 8. Just finish, with a little bit of degree of margin, like I said, with 5 or 6 games to go, and then we can all just go, big sigh of relief and enjoy May.
You know what, getting carried away for a Leeds fan, sometimes it's difficult because you got a manager like Bielsa, somebody who's got a good track record, plays exciting football. But in the Premier League, we've seen that exciting football can only take you to some places. There's some games you've got to be a bit rugged, a bit dogged, and sort of win games over the line. Do you feel like Bielsa can implement tactics like you were saying, that if a team does sort of put 2 banks up 4, that they'll have to maybe play a different way of football?
The problem with Marcelo Bielsa is, he's unbelievably detailed, incredibly diligent in the work that he does, but he has one way of playing, and he refuses to shut up shop. There were times in the Championship where I looked at it, I thought, you're at a game and you're thinking, you're 2-0 up. bring a couple of defenders on, just win the game, see the game out. But no, they continue to be cavalier. They continue to be pushing forward, playing great football. And then they get hit on the counter-attack, they concede one, and then suddenly you've got a very nervous last sort of 10, 15 minutes because it takes a mistake, a slip, a wonder goal, a set piece, and suddenly, from a very commanding position, you've lost 3 points. That is the only worry for Leeds, I think, at times, that, Marcelo Bielsa will not be pragmatic. He will not sort of go to the Etihad. He will not go to Stamford Bridge. He will not go to wherever it is and say, right, okay, we're going to shut up shop. We're just going to defend. We're going to take a point and we'll play on the counter-attack. It's not his way. He doesn't believe in that. And sometimes, I suppose that's the opposite to Mourinho. And we see how well he's doing at the moment. It's great to watch, but sometimes you can get caught with a sucker punch and don't always get the result maybe you need and maybe you deserve at times.
Danny, actually, just moving, before we move on to one of your old teams, playing Arsenal on the weekend. A couple of weeks ago, Arsenal played Manchester United. I was watching Sky Sports, and the pundits afterwards were saying, Arteta's, he's a masterclass manager. He's going to do this, that, and the other. Since then, they've not really remained very consistent. What do you make of Arteta as a manager? Do you believe he has the team in place for him to play the football that he wants?
I think he's starting to get there, but when you take out, Thomas Partey, who I think was a fantastic signing, it leaves him a little bit weak, in that area. Everybody is going on about, Arteta's a fantastic coach and he's improved Arsenal so much. Yes, he has, but I don't think to the degree a lot of people are going on about. Arsenal are not way better than they were under Arsene Wenger. They're not way better than they were under Unai Emery in terms of points. And people keep going about, but they're playing better football. It looks better. Arsenal have always played great football. Yeah. It's about winning. And I go back to what Mourinho did at the weekend. 2-3 shots on target, but they won 2-0. That's what Mourinho is a winner. Football's about winning first and foremost. If you can win and play brilliantly and play entertaining, great. But no fan really cares. Fans want to win trophies. Players want to win trophies. That's why we have league tables. That's why we have cup competitions. It's not dancing on ice, is it? It's not who's the most entertaining. It's not who can do 10 forward rolls and and a salsa dance in the middle of the pitch. It's about winning, about picking 3 points up week in, week out, and there has to be some kind of balance within that.
Last time we spoke to you, I think it was towards the end of last season, so that this season hasn't started, but it's been it has been a crazy season. It's been a lot of goals. There's been a lot of trouble with VAR. There's been, crazy results, really. Are you enjoying this season that it's so crazy? Obviously no fans again, but what do you make of the season so far?
Well, as a defender, if I had any, I'd be tearing my hair out. It's just, or as a defensive coach, some of the defending has been absolutely atrocious. I mean, it's just been shocking. I don't think I think there was a lack of one-to-one coaching at times with defenders. Everybody's, it's all about playing out from the back. It's all about what you do with the ball. And there's the emphasis, I think, has gone a little bit too far. Again, you talk about balance. To win anything, you have to have a very, very good defence. That's why when Van Dijk came into Liverpool and they brought in, obviously, Alisson, the goalkeeper, it changed everything for them. They'd gone close before, but they'd always conceded too many goals, even under Luis Suarez, when he was there in great form. To win trophies, to win anything, you've got to have a great defence. And there aren't too many great defenders around. I think we've gone away from coaching defensive units. We've gone away from coaching individuals at times. And some of the mistakes, yes, they've been exacerbated by sort of VAR and some of the ridiculous decisions that referees are making. But some of the defending at times has been poor. And again, I go back to, I love Jose Mourinho. I always have done. Pierre Højbjerg was not on anybody's list for the top 6 teams. I know Everton were having a little bit of a sniff, but Everton were mid-table last season. Pierre Højbjerg was not on anybody's radar. They're going, he's at Southampton. He's done all right. Mourinho went, right, I know what I need for that position. This is what I need. Mourinho builds teams from the outside. Klopp, Guardiola build teams from the inside and they coach. Yes, they bring in players, but they coach and they improve. Mourinho brings in what he needs for those positions. And Højbjerg's been a sensation. He's been absolutely magnificent in that position. And I think, this is what people have to understand. People will say Tottenham were incredibly defensive, obviously at the weekend, but they won the game. They still had 4 very attacking players within that. If I was a defensive coach, defending's the easy part of the game. Anybody can be organised. Look at what Tony Pulis did, Sam Allardyce did. It's not particularly fashionable because it's about organisation and about hard work. That's all it is. You don't need much ability. That's why I got away with it. You don't need much ability to be a defender because you're breaking things up. I wasn't having to nutmeg people and do little tricks and flicks and assist all the time. So I think people and what Frank Lampard done at Chelsea, first part of the season, unbelievably attacking, superb, but were conceding goals for fun. He then sort of changed it, and they maybe went a little bit too defensive, and they were sort of maybe a little bit too negative. But now he seems to have got the balance right. But again, he's brought in Thiago Silva, who I think has been a sensation. It's his aura, his experience. I watched him in the Champions League game, and every single moment of the game, he's like this. He's looking around every minute. Where do I need to be? Where is the next danger going to come from? Who do I need to pull back into position? And it's those sort of things. If you look at Van Dijk's stats, he runs less by some distance than any other player in that Liverpool side because he puts himself in the right position at the right time. And that's all defending is at times. You don't have to be a great player. You just have to be in the right position at the right time.
Danny, could you play in this era where, defenders are expected to play out with the ball? The right backs, wing backs are meant to be up and down, able to cross, assist, and centre backs will be able to walk out with the ball. Could you play in this era that we're in at the moment?
Yeah, I'd like to think people go back and say, well, you never did that when you played, but you weren't asked to do that, at times. I obviously played to a decent level. The game was a lot more physical. When I played, you didn't get anywhere near as much time on the ball. That makes me laugh a little bit now when people go, people are playing a high press. We used to call it closing down. I don't remember a time where I would, if the goalkeeper rolled the ball out to me, within 3 or 4 seconds, I'd be getting smashed by the left winger. Simple as that. It would come straight through the back of you. We just called it closing down. We used to have Alan Smith, Lee Bowyer, that used to just run all over people, and go and, close the fullbacks down and centre halves down. Could I play? I think I would have adapted to the way that I played. You do get a little bit more time on the ball. People sort of drop off you a little bit at times. And I'd like to think I'd have had the ability to, I wouldn't have been sensational. I'd have been no Trent Alexander-Arnold, that's for sure. But I'd like to think I could have held my own in the current day.
Just want to talk about Man City's season so far with you. They're not doing great. They're sort of mid-table really at the moment. They're not performing great. What is your sort of evaluation of how they're performing so far and why it's not really gelling yet?
Manchester City is really interesting that they are. I think obviously they're still missing. I think they're missing leadership. I talked about this at the weekend. Fernandinho, I think, is one of the biggest misses in their team. When you put Fernandinho in that midfield area, think about what he did in there. Incredible experience, was box to box, was winning the ball, was a presence, was an aura, in that. Yes, he would break everything up. He would make those tackles and he would protect the defenders. But also he would pick the ball up and he would drive forward. He would make things happen and he would make other people, do things. So I think Fernandinho, that leadership role that he has as well as a player, is a huge miss. Vincent Kompany's gone from that as well. The other problem City have had is they haven't scored enough goals and they haven't been clinical enough. And that was even the case last season. They scored more goals than anybody else, but they missed some chances. I remember I commentated on the Watford game when they scored 8. They probably should have scored 15 in that game. There was times last year where Aguero would score 2, but he probably should have scored 5. Jesus should have scored. They were creating so many chances. They just weren't clinical enough at times. And it was all right last year because they still scored, the most amount of goals. Defensively, they weren't good enough. But this season, Aguero's been out. Jesus has been out for a little bit. And they just haven't scored enough goals. They've not been good enough in front of goal. And I think the Aguero situation is a big, big problem for Manchester City, because when Aguero, I still think, is one of the best centre forwards in the league. When he's fit and he's on fire, he's sensational. But he's picking up 1 or 2 injuries. He's not available as often. He's sort of now getting to the twilight of his career. How long can he keep going? Jesus is good, and his stats would back that up, minutes per goal and, closing down, all these types of things. But he's not Aguero. He doesn't have that presence that Aguero has. He doesn't have that sharpness. If I was playing against Jesus, I'd think I could give him a chance and I'd get away with it. Aguero, no. You give Aguero half a chance, bang, goal. And that's it, and you're behind. So, City, you've got David Silva that's out, but Phil Foden didn't play at the weekend, which I found bizarre. I just did not understand. Why is Phil Foden on a high, has played brilliantly for England, is a creative midfield player, didn't get a sniff until it was too late. Again, sometimes Pep Guardiola's team selection, when you look at the last season in the Champions League, are a little bit puzzling at times.
Danny, Pep Guardiola's extended his contract, we heard earlier on this week, till 2023. There's a lot of talk that maybe, he'd just play out his contract and then he'd call it a day and maybe move elsewhere like he's done in the past. And then obviously with that, the rumour mill started. With Pep Guardiola signing, maybe there's a deal in place for Messi, who's going to become, a free agent at the end of the season.
You say free agent. I think he's on about £100 million a week, a year, but whatever it is, free transfer. He's not free as such, is he?
Yeah. What do you make of that? Do you feel like realistically, Messi would move to Man City, because we know he's not happy at Barcelona?
The issue is, where else can he go? I still think Messi has got 3 or 4 years left in him. The way that he plays, the way that he's looked after himself, the ability that he has, is the best player that I've ever seen. People will argue about Ronaldo, and Ronaldo's maybe the best goal scorer, for the big moment and all those. But as a player, as an individual, the thing that Messi can do for football, I've never seen before. When you get to see him live, he's mesmerising at times. So I think he's got a lot of time left. But where does he go? The only place you can see him going is Manchester City, because of that relationship. I think it's too early for him to retire, possibly too early to go back to Argentina, although that might be his preference. I don't see him going to China or going to the MLS. He's too good for that at the moment. He's still got an opportunity to go on and break more records, score more goals, win more big trophies. So, Manchester City would be the only... That relationship with Pep that he has seems like the only place that he could go. He may well stay at Barcelona. Things are changing there all the time. But I think, people say, where would he play? He plays wherever he wants. He can play off the left. He's done that at Barcelona before. He could play off the right. He could play as the false 9. He could play as the real 9. He could play as a 9.5. He can play as a 10. He can play as an 8. You have players in and around him that he would still be devastating in the Premier League. It would be brilliant to see him come to the Premier League, to see what he can do. Still think he has an awful lot to offer. It would fit. And commercially it would work. And people say, well, shirt sales, the club don't get all of that money. Well, they get some of it. But just imagine the commercial sponsors that want to be involved with a club that signs Messi. We talk about Pogba, and since he's arrived at Manchester United, their commercial revenue's gone through the roof. I think 30 odd new deals, commercial deals in terms of sponsorship deals. If you sign Lionel Messi, everybody wants to be involved. That's it, isn't it? So I believe financially, if he's on a free transfer, you can probably make it work. It's just what Messi wants to do. And the other part of that is, I think he's got young children and a wife as well, obviously. Does she want to leave Barcelona and come and live in Manchester?
Maybe.
And that's the problem. We all like to say as players, the family comes and they do as I'm told. But when you get to that point of your career, and I don't know whether she speaks English or I don't know whether the kids speak English, you're leaving Barcelona to come to Manchester, where it rains most of the time. And with COVID and everything else, you've got the travel restrictions. You've got everything else around that. Can he bring the whole family over? Does he find somewhere for them to settle in? Do they stay in Spain? Does he then leave them and come to? So there are all sorts of issues when you're a young player, you get the opportunity to move, you just go, and you're completely selfish, and you couldn't care less. And wrongly, you probably put family as a secondary because you're so focused on what you want to do. But Messi's at that stage now where he doesn't need the money. And he wants a happy life and a good life, and obviously his kids will be in school and all that sort of thing. So there are other factors I think that will come into play.
Obviously it would be great to get him in the Premier League. It would be amazing to have him, playing for Man City or whoever over here. But also, is there a sort of fairy tale type where he should really finish his career at Barcelona if he almost things get better over there, because he's not happy, but things, as you said, can change? That's almost one side of it as well, at the fairy tale, that he stays there and ends his career there.
Yeah, that happens very rarely, though. That's the problem. It's like the Beckham finale, isn't it? And that type of thing. Or often players they have a plan. They think they have a winding down year. They pick up an injury, and then they're out of the side, and it just fizzles out from time to time. Very few players get the big send off, in that final match. I think we probably thought that Zlatan was going to do it, at some stage, but he's gone on and he keeps doing it. At what point does Zlatan sort of retire? What is he now? 39, I think. He's unbelievable. He might be the only one. There'll be that moment where, he says, I'm going to retire. And he goes and scores 2 hat-tricks or something. One in the first half, one in the second, and that's it. And he just leaves it. It's a fairy tale. To be able to go out on a high is fantastic. But I think I guess it's a little bit like any sport. It's hard to retire. And if you've just won something, let's say Messi goes on this season and Barcelona win the Champions League, something happens, and then he says, that's it, I've had enough. You're a long time retired as a footballer. You just want to keep playing. And I know certain players have done it, and I've just said, right, okay, now I'm done and dusted. But I don't. Messi's love of the game, his love of the ball, I think is too strong for him to walk away anytime soon.
You know what, Danny? Just looking at sort of social media and stuff, I really wanted to ask you a question between yourself and another TalkSport sort of member, former footballer, Gabby Ogbonlaho. Talk to me about your little beef, or what is it? What's going on there at the moment?
No, it's great. So I first worked, obviously Gabby's only just retired. We worked out in Malaysia back end of last year. We had a couple of 5-a-sides, got on really well, fantastic. And of course, then there was the season before that, there was the Leeds incident where Leeds obviously allowed Villa to score, and all those types of things. Villa obviously last year in the Premier League, Leeds weren't. And then there was obviously the promotion. I think Villa were lucky last year to survive. And of course, the Jack Grealish thing has come about. Jack Grealish is a fantastic player. He's absolutely sensational. He's in great form. And of course, after a couple of games at the start of the season, people were saying, why is he not in the England squad? Why is he not in the England squad? Why is he not? I said, well, and I was asked a direct question. Why is it? I said, well, basically, because he's not good enough. And there was all this furore about, what do you mean he's not good enough? I said, well, it's not my choice. Gareth Southgate says he's not good enough. Because if he was good enough, he would have picked him. I mean, that's fairly black and white, is it not? But of course, it gets blown up from there. And I think, obviously, Leeds started very, very well. And then they lost a couple. Gabby came out and called Bielsa a myth. So I piled into that after Leeds gave them a good thumping. And it went on from there. And then the Jack Grealish thing has gone on ever since. And I feel like, you know what football fans are like. They still mention things back from when I played like 20 years ago. I'll do this, it'll go out, and there'll be comments going, "What do you know? You lost to Burnley back in the day." It's like, what, really? Football fans have very, very long memories. But no, it's all good fun. Me and Gabs get on very, very well. Sometimes we might do it deliberately, to try and wind each other up. Often he'll send me little fishing emojis after he's gone fishing and got a few comments. But bizarrely, Jack Grealish messaged me the other day on Instagram, after I put something out there, because I said it was football shirt Friday last week, and me and Gabs had a bit of a chat, and I said, look, send me a Jack Grealish shirt. I'm on Sky on Friday. I will wear a Villa shirt, Jack Grealish on the back, if you send it to me. He went, yeah, I'll send it. And he didn't. So whether it didn't arrive or it's lost in the post or whether he was just too tight to send it. So I put that out on social media. And then Jack Grealish messaged me as well and just said, and I just said, look to him. I said, look, I've got no issue with you whatsoever. You're a great player. I had an issue with people calling you world class, and you're not world class yet. And I think, world class is bandied around too often. For me, world class means you are in the top 3 in your position in the world, maybe the top 4. And so I look at it, athletics, you have to win a medal. You have to get bronze, silver, or gold to be world class. You don't have 10 world class centre forwards. It's thrown around, at will. There are players that are world class for a couple of seasons, then they tail off, and they're not world class anymore. But I believe that if you had a game, you have the 2 best teams, you pick your 2 best 11s, and you might have, a substitute for each position. So you're looking at 3 or 4 players per position that I think that you would call world class.
Dan, just a final one for myself. I was listening to Talk Sport the other day, and I think it might have been Hugh Wozencroft who was on it.
Yeah.
And he goes, one thing I miss about going to the games is Danny Mills getting abused by the fans. And I just wanted to ask you, do you like this sort of this bad persona that you've got? You're meant to be this sort of bad man, and everyone sort of hates you, and sort of banter that comes around. It's happened when you were playing football. People, there used to be this thing about Danny Mills.
When we played it, it was panto villain at times, and it was great. We used to feed off it. Even when I went to Manchester, obviously at Leeds, we were aggressive, and we used to get all sorts of abuse and stuff like that, and we quite liked it. It was us against the world. Even when I went to Manchester City, I was the right back, Ben Thatcher was the left back, and we used to play on it. We used to wind other players up. We used to use it to our advantage. Try and get in their heads before the game, in the tunnel, and all that type of thing. Fans would give you plenty of stick, obviously taking throw-ins, and I always enjoyed it. I always thrived on that. But even so, I took my boys are Chelsea fans, or a couple of them are. I took them to a Chelsea Cup final. And we didn't go corporate. We didn't go hospitality. We sat in. We sat in with the Chelsea fans at Wembley. I thought I'd wear a disguise, cap and glasses. Clearly, was not quite good enough. And at half time, we stood back on the concourse. I'm with my 3 boys. Sort of just stood there, sort of, head down, collar up, just keeping it. And all of a sudden, there's a rendition of "We All Hate Leeds" gone, and I'm just thinking, oh, great! Didn't really need this. But then a guy came over, and he came over. He said, and I said, look. So I took my boys' jumpers off and just said, look, my boys are Chelsea fans, whatever. And they were good as gold, and it was all good humour. And I think there was part of that they were like, hang on a minute, this guy, he's brought his kids to the game. They're Chelsea fans, so why not? He's not in corporate. He's not in hospitality. He's not in one of the boxes or anything like that. And it's the same when I get on the tube sometimes. People go, use the tube. Yeah, it's like one of the only ways to get around London. Well, I've been using a Boris bike lately because they're great, and there's no traffic and everything else. So I think, again, it's one of those. It's very much panto villain at times. It's rare that it gets sort of over spiteful. And when you actually engage with people and talk to people, I think they realise that I always say to people, I had one persona on the pitch. And I was a devil, and I would win at all costs, no matter what. I would bite, I would cheat, I would kick, I would scratch. If that meant winning, then I was up for it. The moment the game's over, it's like, it's gone now. Relax, chill. It's only a game. Let's not worry about it. And I think I learned as I got older, to be able to flip that from one to the other, to be able to switch off afterwards and obviously be a different person off the pitch.
Because you do seem like a totally different person. Like you've got like the sort of the bad boy image from Leeds. You were the bad boy of the team, and you just seem like totally different in non-football life. It's
well,
crazy
no,
difference.
and that's what it is. At the moment, new little puppy, and I'll be like that. With a little puppy and all that sort of thing, being all cute and this type of thing. Last week it was help decorating, scrubbing floors, and revarnishing floors and all that type of thing. I'm just a normal person. Had a great job, played in a certain way, in a certain era. That was high tempo, that was aggressive. Yes, overstepped the mark, from time to time, but didn't everybody in that era? But that's all. And I always say, people only know me probably for 90 minutes on the pitch and how the media portray that. Actually, people that really know me, and see me on a regular basis, they sort of go, "Oh, he's not really bothered, is he? Not really, no." and that's how it is, And of course, you have to play up to it from time to time for media and this, that, and the other. I've got an opinion. I will stick by my opinion, and if anyone's going to argue with that, you better have a damn good argument to come back at me with it, because I will defend that to the hill. But yeah, I think you probably find a lot of players like that. What they are on the pitch is often different off it. And I think, it's be like a boxer. Boxers going into a ring, and obviously you guys do a lot of the martial arts stuff, mixed martial arts and UFC and everything else. In the ring, those guys are animals. They're completely different. They step outside the ring and, you meet them in a coffee shop and they're just like everybody else, having a coffee, a skinny lard and a cinnamon bun.
True, actually. That is true of boxers. Yeah, because I'm obviously there's a lot of trash talk with boxing as well, and some people really go for it at the beginning. I guess the same if you're in the tunnel with other players.
We used to do that all the time. All the time we used to do that. So me and Ben Thatcher were brilliant at it. So Thatch would line up against my opposition winger, often that so the left winger. I would go and stand next to the right winger, and I'd be like, "Have you upset Thatch recently? Have you said something in the press?" I said, "He's after you, I said, "I don't know what you've said, but he's just going to snap you in half today. He doesn't care if he gets a red card. He's going to do you, end of." And of course, first tackle or first time you get the ball back then, when you could go through the back of people, and generally get away without booking. You've got wingers sort of, they're all jittery looking behind them. Is he going to come through the back of me? So I said, we used it to our advantage a lot of the time, and it's all just part of the good fun, isn't it? It's when you could play football properly. It's when it was a contact sport, when you could actually kick people and they just say, "Oh, okay."
There was no replays of anything, no checking VAR for.
Well, thank goodness. I'd have been suspended for about 17 games of the season at least.
Right, before we finish, I just want to ask, now the season, we're 9 games in, 8-9 games in, has your sort of predictions or your pre-predictions for the season, have they changed at all now we're a little bit into the season?
Do you know what? I think I had Liverpool and Manchester City at the top. I wasn't sure in what particular order. I still think Liverpool will be up there. I think if you finish ahead of Liverpool this season, I think you probably win the league. I know they've got defensive issues and they've got injuries, but I think they will be able to deal with that. The only team that I see at the moment coming close to that will be Tottenham, and it's whether they can sustain it. Jose's got his mojo back. He's got that twinkle in his eye. He's got that bit between his teeth, and I said, he's put together that team that makes them work, that makes them tick, and he's very, very good at doing that. And I think Harry Kane has changed. I think Harry's mentality over the last few seasons was, I'm going to score. I'm going to break records. I'm going to score goals. I'm going to be the best goal scorer no matter what. It appears now that he's just tweaked that a little bit and said to himself, I want to win trophies. And if that means I have to be a little bit more defensive like he was at the weekend and drop and play a little bit deeper and change his game slightly, if that means he's not going to score as many goals but they win a trophy, I think he'll accept that. He's won the Golden Boot. He's won, Golden Boot in the World Cup. He's done all these things as an individual. Now he needs to go to the next level. So Tottenham, I think, would be the only team that would challenge, I think, if they can be consistent. I mean, Chelsea I still think have a couple of defeats in them. You know, there's a couple of losses where you almost out of nowhere where you just think, oh, I didn't see that coming. You know, Chelsea getting better, but they haven't quite got it right as yet. But to go down, like I said last season, I said Sheffield United would go down and they would struggle. I was just a season too late, Sheffield United fans. Do you know what I mean? I've got it right this season. You surprised everybody last season. But them being in South Yorkshire, me being in North Yorkshire, then, you know, I can't say I'm overly disappointed seeing Sheffield United at the bottom of the table.
I love it. I love how you push the buttons. Danny Mills, I appreciate you coming on. It's always a pleasure talking football with yourself. And hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Danny.
Thank you very much, Danny. Take care.
No worries. No problem at all. Enjoy. See you soon.
Thank you. Great to have Danny Mills joining us on Sportology again. Make sure you stay tuned. We have lots more great shows coming up. More guests are planned. But please support the channel, subscribe, leave some comments for us so we know your opinions, like, share, whatever you can so we can keep bringing you good content and great guests. But we will see you next time.